The scene shifts to the Kronos Empire, where Kronos has captured soldiers of Dimitry during their war against Roman. Among the captured soldiers, one of them tries to communicate with Dimitry to inform them about their situation, but a Kronos soldier seizes the communication device. He remarks mockingly, asking whether the soldiers truly believe that Roman will come to save them, since Roman Dimitry did not even consider prisoner exchanges, and the ceasefire talks are already over. He adds that Dimitry is not coming to rescue them. When the Kronos Empire struck the Western Front, many soldiers were captured when the fortress fell. The quarries of Manhattan required manpower, and those taken by Hannibal territory were sent to a site deep within Kronos' eastern territory. And so, they became forgotten prisoners. The scene then shifts to the Dimitry soldiers, where one of the soldiers named Carol is severely injured, and another soldier tries to help him. One of the soldiers states that it seems the Kronos Empire did not mention their existence during the ceasefire talks, and the soldiers listed as missing are already considered dead by Dimitry. Since Dimitry already finalized the ceasefire, Kronos would not want to bring up the fact that captured Dimitry soldiers exist. It is cruel, but this is their reality. The scene shifts to Dimitry, where a baron reads a document and remarks that this is quite a troublesome situation. If they pressure Kronos over the prisoner issue now, Dimitry, who was just regaining stability, could fall into chaos again. But if Dimitry moves without evidence, Kronos will destroy all proof. Then Roman enters the room and instructs everyone to read the documents. Everyone is shocked after reading them. One of the barons asks if this means Roman already knew the prisoners existed. Roman then asks everyone gathered why they think he rejected the prisoner exchange and pushed the enemy to the brink. The room falls silent. Roman explains that the reason he sought victory even at the cost of sacrifice is because only the victor has rights. Dimitry won while standing firm. They now have the right to reclaim their prisoners. That is the right of the victor. Roman then orders everyone to gather their troops to bring back the people stranded beyond the Western Front, declaring that he is willing to wage war again. Hearing this, everyone shouts their obedience to Roman's command. The scene shifts to a meeting in a room at Manhattan. One soldier wonders whether Dimitry may have noticed the prisoners. Jason replies that Dimitry absolutely will not find out, as the time the prisoner managed to connect the call was extremely short, meaning the message would not have been properly delivered. Baron Manhattan states that all of this is happening because Roman refused to exchange prisoners and says Roman should have considered the consequences of his actions. He adds that if they deliberately hide the existence of the prisoners, Dimitry will have no way to uncover the truth. Jason agrees, noting that since the ceasefire is already established, it will not be easy for Dimitry to overturn the situation. At that moment, a soldier rushes in and informs Baron Manhattan that Dimitry has mobilized troops and crossed the border. Baron Manhattan is stunned. The scene shifts to the Kronos frontline defensive base, where Count Muniz informs the Baron that the enemy has been sighted and has indeed crossed the border. Baron Manhattan tells Count Muniz that Roman must have discovered the prisoner's existence, and instructs him to try negotiating with Roman first. Frustrated, Count Muniz thinks he knew this would happen. As Roman's forces arrive, he orders his soldiers to send a white flag messenger to Dimitry immediately. However, the messenger is quickly defeated by Roman. Roman states that there will be no half-hearted negotiations, and if Kronos wants to resolve the situation, they must bring every Dimitry soldier before him within 2 hours. If Kronos harms any Dimitry soldiers or tries to remove any evidence, they should not even consider it. Roman already has all related proof. If even one soldier is missing, Roman will consider it a declaration of war against Dimitry. Count Muniz is shocked. Count Muniz reports everything to Marquis Memphis and adds that judging by Roman's actions, the ceasefire agreement could truly collapse. Marquis Memphis thinks to himself that Roman dared to cross the border without warning, and although he wants to punish Roman, King Kronos ordered that diplomacy be handled strictly defensively and granted the Marquis authority before entering a year of seclusion. The Marquis realizes he cannot ruin the king's plans by acting on anger. He then tells Count Muniz that if Kronos causes a disturbance with Dimitry and disrupts the king's rest, Count Muniz knows what the consequences would be. Count Muniz apologizes, but the Marquis says there is no need to apologize. He instructs him to handle the matter quietly. Since the prisoners were used as labor by the Eastern nobles, they will declare it as their misconduct. Count Muniz is stunned. After the call ends, the frustrated Count Muniz contacts Baron Mackhitten and relays everything. The Baron cannot believe that, for the Emperor's peaceful rest, Marquis Memphis wants him to cover the incident as Eastern noble misconduct, essentially ordering him to accept defeat to Roman. The Baron asks Jason if he has any solution, as now that the Empire has abandoned the Eastern nobles, Roman's mercy is their only chance at survival. He adds that they must hand over the prisoners as demanded and try to appease Roman's anger. Baron Mackhitten angrily orders Jason to gather every prisoner immediately, not a single one missing. The scene shifts to the Dimitry soldiers, where Baron Mackhitten asks one of his men about Roman claiming to have evidence. A Kronos soldier replies that they hid the prisoner's existence thoroughly and believes Roman should not have the complete list of Dimitry captives. Baron Mackhitten then tells his subordinates to remove the names of the severely injured Dimitry soldiers from the list. 2 hours later, Baron Mackhitten faces Roman and states that all the prisoners are present. He offers a sincere apology for hiding their existence, explaining that due to the sudden ceasefire agreement, the situation became tangled and they panicked and missed the chance to handle it properly. But before he can continue, Roman punches Baron Mackhitten and, filled with anger, reminds him that he clearly warned him not to leave behind even one Dimitry soldier. With a single strike, Roman takes down Baron Mackhitten. Roman then turns around, releases his aura, and orders Count Muniz to bring his people immediately. The scene then shifts to a few moments later, where the rest of the severely injured soldiers arrive. Lucas reviews the list of soldiers and informs Roman that it does not match the list confirmed by the Information Guild. Hearing this, Roman tells the Kronos soldier that several Dimitry soldiers are still missing. The Kronos soldier is shocked and insists he has brought every prisoner. He adds that he does not know what criteria the other list uses, but if certain soldiers are not present, they must have passed away during the war, especially since many prisoners were already in critical condition when captured. Roman then approaches one of the injured soldiers. Using his healing martial arts, he treats the soldier named Carol. Roman asks Carol what happened to the Dimitry soldiers. The Kronos soldier is stunned to witness this. Carol reveals that several Dimitry soldiers were harmed by Kronos forces despite the ceasefire agreement, and the remaining soldiers were kept in extremely poor conditions. Roman then asks who was responsible, and Carol points to Jason. Shocked and frightened, Jason attempts to flee, but Chris steps forward and blocks his path, causing Jason to fall to the ground. Filled with anger, Roman steps forward and decisively takes Jason out of commission. The other Kronos soldiers question Roman's actions, insisting they followed all his demands. Roman responds that those who tried to harm his people must face consequences. Realizing the situation is becoming dangerous, the Kronos soldier thinks he must immediately request intervention from higher authorities. At that moment, Marquis Memphis contacts Roman through a communication device. The Marquis states that crossing the border without notice was already unacceptable, but confronting the Kronos forces directly is going too far. He adds that if Roman stops now, Kronos will accept part of the responsibility and settle the situation peacefully. Roman smirks and replies that if the Marquis truly stands by his words, he should prove his sincerity. As compensation for the suffering of Dimitri's people, Roman declares he will defeat everyone stationed on the Kronos front lines, and if the Marquis still wants a ceasefire afterward, Roman will finalize it after securing the area. Hearing this, Marquis Memphis ends the call. Immediately, Roman charges forward and overwhelms the Kronos soldiers, instructing the Dimitry forces to secure every opponent on the battlefield. Without hesitation, Dimitri's troops surge forward. Roman, Chris, and Kevin advance together. Ares addresses Kevin and Chris respectfully and asks them to let him handle the next part. Ares then steps onto the field. Meanwhile, Count Muniz orders the war mages to step forward and stop the Dimitry forces. The war mages launch multiple spells at Ares, but he skillfully dodges them. Ares throws a dagger toward a building. The war mages assume his aim was off, but then Ares charges ahead, using the dagger as leverage to leap and land on the wall. The soldiers are stunned. Ares is a naturally gifted talent, and with only a short period under Roman's guidance, he has shown explosive growth, now clearly visible on the battlefield. Ares single-handedly overwhelms most of the Kronos soldiers on the front line. Moments later, Count Muniz begins to flee, realizing it is impossible to stop Dimitry and that remaining there would mean certain defeat. He takes a horse and attempts to escape first, only to see Roman approaching from the front after already defeating the Kronos forces. At that moment, Count Muniz realizes that from the moment he confronted Roman, there was never a path to safety. The scene then shifts to the Kronos conference room, where everyone has gathered. Marquis Croit rushes in and informs Marquis Memphis that his son-in-law, Count Muniz, has been killed. He demands to know whether Memphis still intends to maintain the ceasefire even after being attacked without justification. Croit angrily declares that Kronos is acting cowardly and that allowing this to continue would be no different from announcing the Empire's weakness to the entire continent. Marquis Memphis responds calmly, stating that their opponent is Roman Dimitry, and asks Croit what plan he has for taking action against Roman. Croit, confused, asks what Memphis means. Memphis tells him to think carefully. Every time Kronos faced Roman, they made reckless decisions and suffered defeat. He explains that even though Kronos deployed significant forces to the front lines, all they encountered was loss after loss. Memphis emphasizes that Roman is not someone they can underestimate, and Croit cannot hope to confront Roman with half-hearted preparation. With a serious expression, Memphis asks again, how does Croit intend to punish Roman Dimitry? Marquis Croit then demands that Memphis at least explain why King Kronos has secluded himself and what exactly the one-year plan entails. Memphis remains silent. Seeing this, Croit declares that if Memphis chooses to act this way, then he will return to his land, rally the nobles who stand with him, and bring this matter to the public. As Croit turns to leave, Memphis calls out to him. Croit smiles and warns Memphis not to do anything he will regret. Then, with a decisive strike, Memphis brings Croit down. He states coldly that everything in Kronos moves according to the will of King Kronos, and that anyone who questions the king's authority is unnecessary. Memphis then calls for Castro and orders him to send troops immediately to detain everyone connected to House Croit. Castro, commander of the Kronos Royal Knights, replies that he will obey. Memphis tells everyone gathered to trust in King Kronos, assuring them that the Empire's history of victory will continue. The scene then shifts to Dimitry, where Chris informs Roman that they began treating the injured soldiers as soon as they arrived, but their conditions were extremely severe, especially Carol. Roman instructs Chris that those who suffered critical injuries like Carol should be reassigned to a non-combat division, such as the 3rd Unit. If any soldier wishes to live as a civilian, Chris should retire them honorably and prepare proper compensation. Chris agrees. However, Carol sits up and insists that he does not want to retire. He says he will transfer to another division and serve Dimitry in any way he can, even if he can no longer wield a sword. Chris tells him he does not need to push himself so far, but Carol remains determined. The other injured soldiers express the same resolve. Smiling, Roman tells them to follow their own wishes, and they thank him. With this, Dimitry strengthened its foundation as a rising empire, building an unshakable fortress no one could challenge. The scene shifts to the kingdom of Hector, where Edwin is training. He reflects that every move Roman makes surpasses even his broadest expectations. Kronos, once proud and unyielding, now swallows its anger in silence. This calm is merely the quiet before the coming storm. A direct confrontation is inevitable, and when it arrives, the balance of the continent will change forever. In his current state, Edwin believes he can no longer protect Hector. What Hector needs now is not a prince. What they need is a mage strong enough to defend the kingdom. Following Dimitri's bold action at the Kronos defensive line, various kingdoms begin forming their responses. In the kingdom of Frank, the king asks Count Samir how Frank can support Dimitri. Samir explains that a convenient opportunity is approaching. Roman's younger brother, Loren Dimitri, has been promoted to Class A at the Cairo Royal Academy. Loren's promotion ceremony will be held in 5 days, and it is highly likely that Duke Dimitri will attend. Hearing this, the King of Frank instructs Samir to convene the Royal Council immediately so they can decide, through discussion, what gift Frank will present to Dimitri. With the recent incident involving Kronos, the attention of the entire Salamander continent shifts toward the Cairo Royal Academy. The scene then shifts to the academy, where Loren is exhausted from training. His friend remarks that Loren has already passed the promotion exam, so there is no need to push himself to exhaustion. He notes that Loren is exceptional. No one in Class B can rival him, and even the Class A seniors are wary of his ability. The only reason Loren remains in Class B is due to procedural rules, as he has already surpassed typical academy standards. Even so, Loren insists he is nothing compared to his brother Roman. He remembers Roman telling him that he could rise to greatness. As the heir of a family gaining influence across the continent, Roman Dimitry has grown into someone truly worthy of the name. The scene then shifts to the palace in Cairo, where Count Samir has arrived to meet a renowned professor who is close to Loren. Since they hope to request his advice, they must earn his favor first. The door opens, and Samir is delighted to see the legendary author and renowned professor of the Cairo Royal Academy, none other than Henry Albert.